Welcome to Sleep and Deep Lucid Dreaming, the podcast that explores your inner universe and invites you to fall in love with sleep. I'm Dr. Clare Johnson, and I'll help you tap into your own genius and discover the mysteries of sleep and lucid dreams. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Sleep and Deep Lucid Dreaming podcast. I'm Dr. Clare Johnson, and I'm very excited to introduce Bob Hoss as our mystery guest today. Now, Bob Hoss is the director of the DreamScience Foundation, and he's edited 4 books, one of which is his wonderful book, Dreams That Change Our Lives, which he co-edited with Robert Gongloff. He's also written 4 books, including Dream Freedom and Dream Language. And he's a past president and director of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, which is where we met and where we've worked together before. And Bob has done so much for IASD. It's very impressive, his dedication and engagement. He helps to put on all the wonderful, magical dream conferences that happen in various places around the world. And he's also, on top of all of that and all his other achievements, he's also amazing as a dreamer, lucid dreamer, consciousness explorer. And so many times when we've met at conferences, Bob, you've shared incredible dreams with me and also with the audience in your talks. So I really wanted to bring you on the podcast so that you can share some of those fascinating experiences and your general view of dreams and lucid dreams with
Thank
the
you.
audience. You're welcome. So I suggest we start at the beginning. I'm always very fascinated to hear about people's early childhood experiences or generally the first most impressive experiences they had with dreams or lucid dreams. Some people have this very early in childhood, like myself, with all the out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams, sleepwalking, nightmares, and all of this. And other people find that it's a dream later in life that kind of comes bursting into their life and changes their whole perspective on reality. So I would love to know, Bob, can you pinpoint the moment or the dream or the experience that led to this lifelong fascination?
Oh, okay. It wasn't necessarily one, but yeah, I can pinpoint one uh, that really comes to mind. When I was a kid, I dreamed what's considered today lucid dreaming. Uh, all my dreams wasn't so much that I knew I was awake in bed, but they were very lucid, and so I thought everybody dreamed that way. uh, and I could understood the a certain level of influence over the dream that I had. And the one that really stands out is I was probably about 8 years old or so, and I was with a bunch of friends out in the front yard. All of a sudden, this huge storm came along in the sky, terrifying storm, and all my friends ran away. And of course, I tried to run, and it was like my feet were like lead. I couldn't run. I couldn't run. And this was a recurrent dream. It happened 2 or 3 times. Well, at about the 3rd time, I said, "Wait a minute, I've dreamed this before." And so this time I turned around to the storm and faced it. And all of a sudden, the clouds turned into beautiful colors, and now it was fascinating to me. And, and then I could make the colors swirl and things like that. So in the following dreams, whenever the storm would come, I would invite it. I was like, "Oh, this is great," and I would make the storm tear down buildings and tear up trees and things like that, and just had fun with it. And I kind of recognized that it had a lot to do with my life, even though I was sort of practicing this in a lucid dream. Is that it allowed me to take better control of things in my waking life, things that scared me, and things of that sort. So,
Right. Yeah, it's
that was,
empowering for kids, isn't it, to realize that they have
yeah,
a sense of agency and that when you change something, when you change your attitude in a dream, everything changes. And you learn to put that into place in your waking life. That's amazing. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Great one. Yeah. And so as the director of the Dream Science Foundation, From a scientific point of view, what do you feel is the most exciting development now in dream research or lucid dream research? I know there's a lot going on, but
Right.
maybe you can think of a thing.
Well,
Yeah.
there's some that's highly that I'm highly curious about. I think as most all researchers are, is how the neuroscience actually aligns with the experience of dreams and lucid dreaming. There's been quite a lot of study on that, particularly with regards to memory and things like that, and the fact that in normal dreamings we're learning is part of our daylight night day learning process, things of that sort that go on, and you can see that in lucid dreaming. That indeed, even in a lucid dream, we seem to be learning something, like I did in that particular example. So the normal brain function seems to be operating in lucid dreaming, although in lucid dreaming, of course, you have a little bit more cognitive control, or at least cognitive awareness and cognitive self-awareness in the lucid dream. You don't necessarily have a lot of control because the dream and the mind and consciousness is larger than is just the ego consciousness. So how the neuroscience of lucid dreaming, even though there's been quite a bit of exploration, is very curious to me how it all fits together. But I think one of the most exciting things is that those who have that are lucid dreamers quite often, and that understand the dynamics of lucid dreaming, what goes on, find themselves beyond just the normal conscious functioning of the dreaming brain, uh, and even beyond Jung's identity of the collective unconscious, and what goes on with personality development and growth. Uh, quite often, you find yourself understanding that there is this higher level of consciousness that may define in different ways, but that's behind the dream that you can turn to. You can actually ask questions to about. Usually, open-end questions work, like "Show me something I need to know," or "What is the meaning of my life," or things of that sort. But you get very profound answers that go beyond what ego consciousness can even contrive.
Ooh.
Um, and
Well, give us an example of one of your one of your lucid dream questions.
well, I can give you my greatest one.
Bring it on.
Yeah, this happened. My wife has dementia, unfortunately, and when it was beginning to degrade very rapidly, it threw me into shock. Although I cared for my mom who had dementia as well, but it threw me into shock, and I was one night just really worried about what do I need to do to get through this situation. Because it was not easy finding caregivers that I needed, things of that sort. And so I went to sleep that night with that thought in mind. What do I need to get through this situation? And I dreamed that night a bunch of rusty boats. Now, boats in my dreams, boats relate to my freedom, my ability to move forward, my creativity, etc. And they were all rusting. And so that was one of my fears, that this dementia was, I couldn't become the caregiver, staying at home. I couldn't be very creative. Um, but all of a sudden, I realized that I was dreaming. And I said, "Oh, I don't want to waste this chance." So I turned to knowing there was this wisdom in the dream. I turned to it and I said, "What do I need to get through this situation?" And and I did it sort of as a prayer, really. The first time I just said that and nothing happened. I said, "Wait a minute, I really mean it. What do I need to get through this situation?" And all of a sudden I was whooshed up into this universe of crystal and blue light. There was all the celestial singing going on in the background, and I put my arms up and I could see right through my body, and I had the sense that I was a part of this universe, which was a higher level of consciousness. It was the wisdom behind the dream. And and then all of a sudden, I got this feeling of bliss like I've never felt before, or couldn't even imagine feeling. And I began to fade away and become part of this overall consciousness. It was weird. I was still an ego self, but yet I felt all the knowledge that was in this consciousness at the same time. Um, and then suddenly I began to fade away. And all of a sudden I snapped out of it and I said, oh, I said, this is great. But you didn't answer my question. What do I need to get through this situation? And all of a sudden, in the background, with all the celestial music playing, a tune started playing. But before that occurred, there were these little red hearts that started floating around in a circle, and they formed this gigantic red heart in front of me. And as I listened to the tune, it got a little louder, and it was the Beatles singing "All You Need Is Love." And at that moment, I woke myself up. I said, This I got to write down." And because I understood that to be the only answer, having gone through this before with my mom and all. And the other thing is, it changed me. I understood what that meant about all you need is love, what love meant in this situation differently than I did before. And that triggered a whole series of lucid dreams, which involved myself and my wife's spirit actually on the other side. We can talk about a little later if you like.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I love that dream. It's just so beautiful. And of course, for me as well, it's this fascination of like, what happens when you get taken into these other spaces and you receive perhaps some sort of a wisdom download, or you lose your ego sense. You become
Right.
a dot of conscious awareness, and then even the dot disappears, and you merge into this sense of oneness and bliss. And
Yeah.
these dreams are no longer linked with the personal psychological development, as you say. This is transpersonal. This is going beyond all of that and existing in a completely different kind of reality, where we lose that ego self that we're so attached to every
Yeah.
day of our lives. We just dissolve. It's such
What's amazing to me about it is not that just we lose the ego self, because, there are brain states where that happens. Uh, but with this profound wisdom that would not even occur to a person, or myself at least, in the conscious state, it comes through. And in many cases, it's totally opposite to what the ego understood or believes, etc.
yeah.
And it changes the person. That's, the change in me was dramatic. It went from terrified about how I'm going to deal with Lynne to uh, uh, actually, I can't say enjoying it, but actually became more enjoyable. I felt a purpose to it. I felt, I loved to take care of her instead of terrified.
Oh.
And then it seemed to entangle with the waking world as well, because at that moment, right after that, not being able to find any caregivers, et cetera, this angel of a caregiver came along without me even trying, and
Oh.
is now with us, just about full time.
Oh, it was the love that attracted her into your
Yeah,
situation.
I mean, it's that kind of magical synchronistic stuff seems to happen. And so this goes beyond something that just the brain states can generate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, that's just such a touching story, and it shows, the power of lucid dreaming to take us into these other realms and give us the tools that we need, or the attitude that we need, to be able to handle all of the things that life throws at us. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. And so back to the science of dreaming. Just briefly, I know that a lot of people have got very excited about the experiments that Japanese scientists have done into brain imaging. They've used brain imaging and AI to
Yep.
reconstruct an estimate of the visual content of dreams. So showed images in waking reality, waking life, and they
Yep.
observed which brain patterns were activated. And then during dreaming, they monitored the brain and tried to match that
Right.
dreamed activity with this pool of images. People get super excited about things like this. And also sometimes people get a bit freaked out because they're like, oh, I don't want people peering into my dreams, or how is it, where is this going to end up? What do you think, Bob, about these?
Well, yeah, this experiments are kind of fun, but they're based on training AI, training the computer, which now we have a lot of computing capacity for. Uh, but they training the computer on how the and mainly the cortex of the brain changes when a person looks at various images. Um, it, that is just one level of dreaming. Imagery is only, there's a simple level of dreaming. Dreaming is more about emotional impact, imagery associated with emotions. Because the thing that really activates when you're, particularly in REM sleep, is the limbic system, which is deeper inside the brain. And if you really study dreams versus what the event that occurred, most of the scientific studies show that dreams are not about the event. They don't include the event that occurred. They are about it.
Great story.
They only include about less than 2%, is what the studies show of the actual event. They include fragments of the events mixed with fragments of other memories that are associated with it. But the thing that drives it all is the emotions. The dream because the limbic system is what's really active. It's processing the emotions, how you reacted to the event, not the event itself necessarily, but how you reacted to the event, your emotional perception of the event. And evolutionary scientists tend to understand that this is like the dream is practicing different ways of dealing with the emotional situation, with the perhaps purpose of dampening the emotion so that you can deal with it, or better yet, putting the event and your emotional reaction to it into the context of your life and the context of reality as brought in through the senses. And in doing that, is you learn. It's called emotional learning. Memory reconsolidation is the term. And so when you wake the next day, you haven't messed with the memory of the event. You still remember what it is, the episodic memory. But the emotional memory has changed. All of a sudden, your perception of the event might change. I think most people have seen this when they go to bed mad about something or upset about something. Or they wake up in the morning going, it's not so bad anymore. That's because overnight you've practiced different ways of dealing with the emotions. You put it in a context of your whole life. And basically you come out with a different attitude.
Yeah, that's very true. I also find it sometimes works almost the opposite way when a
Oh,
dream
yes.
comes to show me, oh my gosh, this is how you really feel about this situation. I remember one dream that I had. My daughter had a new bike. And so I took her out on the new bike and we were on the fields and there was a little ditch at the side of this little lane she was on. And I was going, oh, be careful, you don't want to go into the ditch. So keep your handlebars steady and all of this. And I wasn't terrified at all in that waking life situation. I was just like, got to be careful. I just remind her not to go to the side because she kept looking
Right.
at her shoulder and then the handlebars would turn. So I went to sleep that night and I had a terrifying dream. So in the dream, I was with my daughter. She was on a bike in front of me. I was riding along behind her. And in front of us, there was this bridge over a colossal chasm, incredibly deep chasm. And my daughter rode onto this bridge. And as she rode on, I saw that the bridge had no sides. And in the dream, I was like, oh no, there's no sides to the bridge. She could just fall off. And so I thought, okay, I can't shout out a warning to her because otherwise she'll turn around and she'll turn the handlebars and she could go off the edge. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to hope, that she gets to the other side okay. So that was the dream I had. She did get to the other side okay. So the dream kind of resolved. But when I woke up, I thought, oh my gosh, this is about me letting my daughter go, like letting her grow up and
Right.
trusting that she can handle it. And I don't have to always be behind her going, watch out and be careful. So sometimes
Notice what the
show
dream
is,
did. Notice what the reconsolidation there,
Yeah.
it put the situation in context. It was triggered by something simple,
Yeah.
but it went back to an earlier trauma that had not been unresolved. But yet in the dream, in the end, it basically said, you can handle it,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And so that's part of this process that, evolutionary scientists at least understand the dream to be. It's threat simulation, for example, that
Exactly.
and Molly talked about. But it's an amazing process that seems to
Really
take
is.
place in dreams. It deals with the emotional aspect. And that's the thing that the computers can't really capture.
Right.
So even though the computers can go image by image,
Yeah.
if you train them enough, through a lot of imagery, they can't capture the true dream yet,
Yeah.
which is the emotional aspect and the relearning aspect,
Exactly.
and as you say, most dreams I think come out kind of negative, so you don't always get there in the dream. They're still working on the situation, but if you look real closely, you can see even in your dream where there is a process that's taking place to try to put the situation in the context of your life and come up with some sort of emotional learning or resolution.
Yeah, and recognize the fear that you're feeling, or recognize that that's holding her back. My daughter's case, I've just got to let go and trust. That was
You
the
got it. You got it. Yeah.
message for me.
So that was a very successful group. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And dreams sometimes show us possible futures. That's why I love that they play out different possibilities to kind of
Yeah.
test drive the future. What might happen if I go out with this guy and not that guy, or that
That's
kind of thing.
exactly what they're
So
doing.
handy.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
wonderful. And I also, still on the subject of dream science or lucid dream science. I also find it very interesting that we're starting to be able to talk to lucid dreamers while they're asleep. So there was a 2021 study where researchers actually connected with lucid dreamers in real time through speaking to them, asking them questions like simple maths questions like, what's 2 plus 2? And the lucid dreamer could respond by making 4 eye movements, or they'd ask them a yes or no question, and the lucid dreamer could smile a bit for the yes or frown for the no, and then the electrodes would pick up the muscular movement on their faces. And it feels like just the start of a lot of exciting experiments. And I just wonder, where it's all going. I mean, what do you think we'll be able to do in the future?
well, I think the most exciting piece about what you just mentioned to me is actually interacting with the dream characters, which there's been an awful lot of studies. In the lab, you get a number of people that are frequent lucid dreamers,
Yeah.
and give them a set of questions to test the dream characters on.
Mm.
And so within the lucid dream, I think Shredel and Erlacher did a number of these, and there's a number of other people who explore this. And they ask the character in the dream, these arithmetic questions, or and they found out that multiplication division seems to work, but others don't seem to. Sometimes like 60% of the time, the dream character is correct. Sometimes more than that. With the math, they can obviously they can handle the metaphors better than they can the math. The one that really, the one that makes me laugh is I think the dream character asked the dreamer, the researcher in the dream, asked that dream character, um, uh, uh, "Give me a metaphor for uh, a um, a lighthouse in the desert." And the dream character came back with something like, it's like a nun with a condom or something like that. So,
Oh, very creative association.
yeah,
I think sometimes as well about the experiments that Paul Tolley did, the German researcher who wrote a book called Schöpferisch Träumen, so creative dreaming, and he got his students to become lucid in dreams and ask their dream figures, for example, to sit across from them at a table and then draw a picture of them, right? Because they wanted to see, will that dream person draw from my perspective, because I'm the lucid dreamer, or will they draw it from their perspective? And they drew it from their perspective, sort of seeming to show that
it
they
really
have
is
some sort of
amazing.
independent consciousness. Oh, so many fabulous experiments into this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, from a pure brain science standpoint, it appears that our dream characters are equally sharing parts of our mind. You know,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
which,
Exactly. Yeah.
which can be a little bit scary because it's like, ooh, all these things are in me.
But
But
we are so much vaster than most of us think. There is so much
yeah,
more to us on every level, right? Of every level of consciousness. And I think
I know.
so many
Well,
people live a reduced kind of, yeah.
I tried one time. I like to use the open-ended question. If I know I'm dreaming, I'd try to quit flying around and say, "Oops, I'm wasting a good lucid dream." I'd turn around to the wisdom beyond the dream and say, "Show me something I need to know." And all of a sudden, I was launched into this room where I was a professor in a university setting, teaching. There was roughly 20 dream characters sitting in front in my classroom. And we were discussing, back and forth,
Mhm.
what it's like to be a character in a dream, et cetera, back and forth. And they would be sharing ideas, and we'd be discussing this stuff. And then all of a sudden, this one woman said, Wait a minute, professor." She says, "If I'm a dream character, how can I remember a whole life before this?" She says, "I have a husband, I have kids,
Mm.
I live in such and such. How can I be a dream carrier and know all this stuff, and have this experience?" And I turned around, this, as a professor, and said, "That's a very interesting question. Let's turn to the other students. How many of the rest of you have can recall a life before this moment?" And about 5 hands slowly came up.
Oh,
And then all of a sudden, the entire class raised their hands that they could
ooh.
remember.
Wow.
So, yeah, very, very,
Interesting.
very interesting.
I love that about lucid dreaming. It just makes you think more about the nature of consciousness, the nature of
Yes.
reality. But I'd love to talk to you about lucid dream control as well, because this
Okay.
is something where, a lot of people don't necessarily, a lot of people think that lucid dreaming is synonymous with complete control. You and I know that that's not the case, but, we have also people who say, oh, but you shouldn't control anything in the dream because the dream is sacred and lucid dreaming takes that
Right,
away.
right.
So there are all these different perspectives. You're listening to Sleep and Deep Lucid Dreaming podcast with Dr. Clare Johnson. If you love reading books on the remarkable states of consciousness we encounter during sleep, you may enjoy some of my life's work to date, including The Complete Book of Lucid Dreaming, The Art of Transforming Nightmares, Dream Therapy, The Art of Lucid Dreaming, and my brand new release, Elixir of Sleep. Visit deepluciddreaming.com. And about 20 years ago, when I was doing my PhD research into lucid dreaming, I came up with 4 levels of dream control, 4 levels of
Mhm.
engagement with the dream. And the first one was passive observation, where you try not to control or do or even think anything
Right,
that's going to change the dream. You just sort of stand there and watch. Then there's passive participation, where you go with the flow of the dream, whatever's happening. So if you dream that you're flying over a city, you keep flying over the city. If you dream you're having an argument with your granny, you continue to argue with your granny. And then the third level is sporadic control. And this sporadic control is when you give an impetus to the dream, for example, asking a question, as we talked about earlier, or asking, oh, I would like to meet my deceased mother, or something like that. So you give a little bit of an impetus, and then you see what the dream brings. You allow the dream to be spontaneous. And then there's continuous control, which simply means that you're constantly trying to change things and shape reality and making particular decisions about your actions during that dream. Even if you can't control everything that's happening in the dream, you control your actions. So
right.
those were my 4 different levels of dream control that I came up with. And at that point in my life, my favorite was sporadic control, because I was doing research into lucid dreaming and I loved just becoming lucid and asking my most recent research question, or engaging with my novel characters and asking them questions and all of this. But I would say that that has changed. It changes. It depends on what I'm doing in my life. But very often these days, I just allow my lucid dreams to become transcendent, like the ones that you were mentioning earlier, when you go into a completely different kind of space or dimension, perhaps meet higher beings, or you get some sort of wisdom, or you're shown something amazing, or your consciousness simply
Mhm.
becomes one. So my question to you, Bob, is what's your take on dream control? And what feels the most valuable to you personally, guiding lucid dreams kind of on purpose, or going with the flow, and why?
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, first I'll ask the philosophical question. Folks that say, well, you shouldn't mess with your dreams, shouldn't control your dreams. I don't believe that that is in any way correct, because even with non-lucid dreams, as we discussed before, the dreaming process is a learning process, and the ego is involved. The problem in non-lucid dreams, the ego, the parts of the brain, the particularly frontal cortex regions and parietal cortex, other areas of the brain, um, uh, are relatively inactive. So you get drug along into the dream, but you are trying. The dream is trying different ways of looking at the future, different ways of solving a problem, and you are, as the ego, involved one way or another. You still have some degree of conscious awareness, conscious control over what you do in the dreams, et cetera. So there's nothing wrong with controlling the dream. In lucid dreams, it's even better, because now the ego has a lot of self-awareness and can really interact with what the dream is trying to do. So it's almost like you are helping the lucid dream, helping the dream with something the dream couldn't necessarily do as quickly on its own. So I think control, at least of your own actions and the decisions you make in the dream, is extraordinarily important. And that's part of the health of lucid dreaming. So
Yeah.
the idea that shouldn't control your dreams, that's something else. But now, when it turns into ego control of the dream, that's a different situation. Most lucid dreamers will realize that they have very little control, because the ego consciousness is only a tiny portion of your total psyche. There's this whole collective unconscious. There's your own unconscious that you're hyper connected with in dreams, that is the majority of the dream. So if you think you're going to control a dream, you got another thing coming. It usually ends up flipping on you. Uh, the one example I like a lot is, I'd been doing quite a bit of lucid dreaming. So and it was a lot of fun. And I decided that I was in this one lucid dream. I said, "Oh wow, I'm having a lucid dream." I said, "I I I asked the dream. I wanted a joyous experience, and I demanded, ego demanded. I said, I want this dream to be filled with spiritual beings, bright colors, wisdom, etc." And instead, all of a sudden, the colors of the dream just dulled down to these sort of almost fakish colors, and there was nobody around. No matter what I did, I couldn't find anybody to talk to. It was the exact opposite of what I demanded. But finally, this one woman shows up. I said, "Oh," I said, "who are you?" And she says, "I'm the secretary. I am here to take your orders. But if that's all you want me to do, I can't be very creative."
Oh.
So, in other words, the lucid dream was just basically telling me, if you want to control me, I can't do the things you want. So,
Hey, you've got to allow that spontaneity. Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was great. And yeah,
Oh,
once I understood that, of course, the dream, more people started down the dream, but then it ended.
oh,
But
perfect.
it was,
So yeah,
yeah,
that kind of leads you to the sporadic control level, where you just give
yeah,
it
it,
impetus and then you allow the dream to be free and creative and just see what comes. But I totally agree that like lucid dream control, or giving an impetus or some sort of change to the dream, it can really accelerate healing, and it can help us on so many levels, also with creativity. And this is what I've done a lot of work with as well. It's like getting creative ideas through lucid dreaming. Just ask the dream, and see what happens, see what it comes up with, and it's quite fantastic to
yeah.
experience.
And I had another one where I was decided I was going. I had become aware of what dream characters are in the dreams, or at least what they aren't, and what happens when you accuse one of of being a dream character.
Mm.
And I had a really interesting one. There was this character who was sort of a guiding character in the dream, or some important character in the dream. And I decided, I said, I'm going to have fun with this character instead of just asking who they are, where they came from, et cetera. I said, do you know that you are a dream figure? And this character, this figure in the dream says, yes, I am a dream figure, but I am dreaming you.
Oh, great. I love that.
Yeah, so
We go in with all these assumptions, don't we? We have all these assumptions about what a dream is and who's dreaming and so on. It's always really good just to do what you did, just kind of like explore, discover
yeah.
things, and then, we're learning every time we have that kind of lucid dream. We learn
Well,
a whole new kind of way of
yeah, and
engaging with our lucid dream.
profound wisdom behind this was amazing to me because, I, as sort of a student of Jung, and he talked about he called it the self, that represented the entire self, the collective unconscious, et cetera. And it was in Jung's words, it was this inner self. It was like the soul from which the ego evolves. So the ego is driven essentially into your personality through the self. And so this was like Jung's self saying, "Hey, I'm dreaming you, the ego. You're not dreaming me."
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it turns things on their head. It's always a good thing. That's what I love as well about lucid dreaming. You can never get bored of it. You're always going to learn something new because, it's huge. There's just so much to learn. Oh, well, thank you, Bob. Those are some great dreams that you've shared. Now, yeah, I'd like to ask you, come back to what you were saying earlier about your dreams, about your wife, because at a recent IASD conference, I remember you sharing a sequence of incredible dreams that you had with your wife, and it blew me away. And I would love for you to share those dreams with our audience if you'd like to.
Yeah, okay, I'd love to. It all started with that first dream at the big the big red heart. All you need is love. And what happened after that is I had a totally different appreciation for love and caregiving, and then all of a sudden the synchronicities of having a caregiver come into our lives. It was just magically taking place. But then suddenly this state of mind triggered a number of lucid dreams. The first one was pretty interesting. Um, I was in a lucid dream with my wife, and we were doing something, and I can't even remember the dream. Wasn't all that didn't seem all that important. Although it was a lucid dream, we were having fun, and she was younger, and but as I woke up and I opened my eyes, I looked over to the window in the bedroom, and there she was standing, full bodied, but like 30 years younger. And she looks at me and she says, "Let's go." She waved her hand up, and the communications was, "I'm on this wonderful spiritual journey. Come on." And later I understood that in these lucid dreams, she saw me as a spirit. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't just go, "Let's go. Come on, Mom." Uh, and
She
so
was ready
that
to
was kinda
depart.
interesting.
You mean like
Yeah,
she was like ready to
yeah.
die? Or
And she was the joy in her, "Wow, I'm out now. I wanna go. Let's go. And, I want you with me."
oh,
So that was the first one.
wow. And how did that make
Uh,
you feel when you woke up, knowing that she was ready to go?
well,
She thought you were
uh,
coming too.
it made me feel delighted because her particular form of, dementia takes out her speech centers. And so there was no way in waking life that we could speak or
Oh.
talk. And here she was finally, it was back like at her prime of life, and 30 years younger. And it was just wonderful. The sense of joy it was tremendous. But then what it triggered was dreams that occurred, lucid dreams, I'd say about every couple of weeks. So the next one, I was I was lucid dreaming and flying around or something. So, whoa, I'm wasting a lucid dream.
No.
So I turned to this divine I considered this somewhat of a divine consciousness within the dream. And I said, "Take me to Lynn." And so whooshed me into another lucid dream where I was in a room with Lynn and she was packing. And I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm packing for us to go see God." I'm going, "Us?" And that, again, a couple of weeks later, there was another lucid dream. We were playing, we were having fun together. And I said, "Oh, mom died a couple of years ago. Let's go see if we can find her." And at that moment, there was a hallway that appeared, and she comes around the corner and she looks at me and she says, "We're waiting for you."
Oh,
I go, that's a good house. Serious here.
oh,
This is
yeah.
getting serious. And so, and then we had another beautiful lucid dream. This lasted, my sense was at least 45 minutes,
Wow.
where met her in, again, 30 years younger, and in a heavenly like setting. It was this beautiful park like setting. And we were playing a game of some sort. We were running around playing some sort of game.
Yeah.
And then we sat down at a uh, bench and we started talking. And I looked in her eyes and I started crying. And she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, in my world, you can't talk with me." And she says, "What do you mean I can't talk with you? I'm talking to you now and I'll be talking to you for the next million years." And so we got up from the bench and just continued our game, whatever it was we were playing and having fun. And maybe a half hour later, we sat back down on the bench and I was talking again. And again, I started crying. And she says, "Why are you crying again?" I said, "Let me explain. In my world, you have dementia and you cannot speak." And it seems like at that moment, what happened was she suddenly realized that she was still connected to a body.
Mm.
Um, because what happened next is in the next lucid dream, she and I think she realized that I was in a different world too. But in the next lucid dream, we were in the house, and she was going running out the door with a bag, a rollaway bag, uh, yeah, going out the door. I said, "Where are you going?" She says, "I've decided I can leave on my own."
Wow.
And I said, "No, no, you can't. You got dementia. You can't drive, et cetera." I was still thinking in physical world terms.
Yeah.
She says, "No, no, no." She says, "I know I can leave on my own. I'll be fine." And at that point, the dream ended.
Wow.
And so I thought that, well, that's kind of cool. You know, she's off on her own. But then the most disturbing thing happened. I had in another lucid dream again, I've been doing something. And then I said, "Oh, I'm wasting the dream." So I turned to this wisdom behind the dream. I said, "Take me to Lynne." And it took me to this street corner of there's a little shop on the corner. And the shop was and Lynne was managing the shop. And the shop was the metaphor for her body, I recognized, because when I entered the shop, they were selling these little glass birds, ceramic birds. They were white with red and green tops painted on them. And the only words that Lynne Freely was saying in waking life at that time were birds are red and green.
Uh-huh.
So I metaphorically thought, well, this is her shop, because in the shop, the issue was that she was managing the shop, but she was having a terrible time managing it.
Mm.
And so I said, "I'm going to go up and see Lynne in the office." So I went upstairs and started talking to her. And then she said, "I just can't do it. I just can't do it." And I said, "What is it you can't do?" She said, "I can't leave without you." And her face morphed into this horrible, painful expression. And it shook me awake. And at that point, I panicked. I said, "I have got to go back to another lucid dream and basically calm her down, you know." And so I tried to incubate a dream first night after that, and I ended up with the void, the blue void, just beautiful blue ness, which you and some others have talked about, but no Lynne. And so then the next night I tried to incubate a dream, nothing. But the third night I incubated a lucid dream, and I said, "Take me to Lynne." Um, and it took me to this place called a halfway house.
Mhm.
And there was this woman in control, and around there's a big giant room, like a living room setting, and there were spirits, half spirits, all around the room. They were like body forms, in the center, but they had this glow around them like a spirit.
Yeah.
And I said, "Is Lynne here?" And she said, "Yes, she is. She's right down the hallway." So I go down the hallway, and there was Lynne sitting on this couch. And I came running into the room, and I ran up to her and I hugged her and started kissing her. I said, Lynne, I'm so sorry that I'm in the physical body. I can't be with you now, but I'll be along soon. Time in your domain is different than in the worldly, and so I'll be along soon.
Mm.
And she looked at me and sort of in a reserved fashion said, "I'll be okay. I'll be okay."
Oh.
And that was the end of the lucid dreams for a while. And all of a sudden, what happened then was she came back. It seemed to have come back into her body because all of a sudden her decline in dementia stopped to the point where hospice took. She was on hospice care, and hospice took her off. The decline stopped. She seemed to be going the other way.
Wow.
And I'm going, "Oh no, she's come back into her body just to wait for me." It's not
Yeah.
wrong.
Oh.
And there was one other one that was curious though. After that, and but it was about a month later, and the dream went lucid. Just popped for a second. She appeared. She says, "Where have you been?" And that was the last dream I ever had of her. And
Oh.
it seems like that somehow she basically came back in,
Yeah.
and wow.
Wow. That's
Which is not a happy
incredible.
thing. It's nice to have her here, but I
Yes.
saw her. She was on a adventure that was beautiful.
Oh, I get that. Wow, it's just so fascinating that you have been able to connect with her then on some level, despite not being able to speak with her in her waking reality. I mean,
There was nothing I ever believed or understood could happen, although there's a theory about it, that people with Alzheimer's and dementia do, the spirit begins to leave the body.
yeah.
So I guess that was interesting.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. And I do think we can pick up information and share information far more easily in dreams or lucid dreams than we can in the waking state sometimes, because of our boundaries or our ideas of like what's possible or not possible. Um, and I know somebody as well who has Alzheimer's, and as at the very start of that, when it started to kind of really go into decline, I had some really interesting lucid dreams that featured this person as well. And they always featured light, like him looking towards this incredible light. It was really,
Oh
really
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and because I had read, various things about Alzheimer's, people can get aggressive or this and that can happen, and so we were all a bit, worried about what was going to happen. But when I went to see him after that, he was in his bed, and amazingly, he had all this light on him, and his eyes were just filled with light. It was just so
Yeah.
amazing, and I just, and he's never had any depression or any kind of issues like that, and it's just, I don't know. Who can explain it? You're the kind of the science guy, and yeah, there are
Well,
other
the other
people.
thing some people say all these are just grieving dreams, or normal sorts of dreams. There's a huge difference, and the huge difference is in like you said, the light. Um, Both of these dreams and those that I've had who have friends who have passed over and came.
Yeah,
A lot of times you dream people have passed, but came in the dream at these amazing moments. The sense, particularly with Lynne and with these, is the intensity, the emotion of love is beyond anything that you could ever experience in waking life.
yeah,
Some of those that I've had were dream people who passed come with me when we hug. It's like
yes,
two souls merging. It's electric. It's like it is an amazing shock. And so the intensity of the emotions and the intensity of the situation, and then just the electric sense
yeah,
is something really different than just a grieving dream,
yeah.
or any other kind of dream you might want to have.
Totally. It really is
Yeah.
like connecting with a whole other dimension. It's very powerful. And what I found as well is that it doesn't, I mean, I've had plenty of dreams with deceased loved ones, but I've also had dreams with people who are deceased who I never knew that well. And I mean, you knew Ernest Hartman, didn't you? And
Oh, very well.
yeah, and I mean, I only knew him because he ran the. So I'll just say quickly, he's an American psychoanalyst and sleep researcher, and I knew him because of the Student Research Awards of IASD, which I won one of those awards many, many years ago, and I'd connected with him there, but I didn't know him well. And then when he passed away, I without having thought about it, or tried to do anything, I found myself in a lucid dream where I was taken into a white space of incredible light. And there was Ernest. And
Oh, wow.
he was literally larger than life. He was about probably 20% taller than than average humans. So it's really, really big, beaming with joy, incredibly vital, gorgeous. And I said, "Oh, hello, how are you?" Because I knew he'd passed away just a couple of weeks before. And he said, everything is perfect. Everything is wonderful. He said it without words, it was telepathic
Yeah.
communication. And we started talking about the journey of the soul through life and about how precious life is and how, we have to make the most of it no matter what it throws at us. There's still something so incredibly precious and beautiful about being alive in a human body and having this human experience. And it was so amazing talking to Ernest about this. And then a woman came into the room with long black hair. She came from a door I didn't even see. And then we all had this group hug. And during the hug, I realized my feet were not touching the ground. And I realized it was because they had lifted me up. And I just felt so touched. There was so much love in that space. So incredibly powerful lucid dream experience.
Well, that is, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with Ernest, my experience right after his death, we'd become such good friends that when he was hospitalized or too sick to present, he would have me give his presentation. So it was just wonderful to stand there kind of in the embodying and giving the presentation. But I had I was going to give a keynote at Hayden Institute, and I forget there was something that I was going to talk about with regarding to, Ernest, and I was a little bit nervous because it was a spiritual experience um, to give this presentation to mention Ernest in the presentation, et cetera. And as I was driving to the Hayden Institute and got debating, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe I should, et cetera. I said, wondering what should I do? And at that instant, a text came on my iPhone that said, Ernest Hartman. I mean, it was someone that was using his text, a family member that was texting. But it was like, well, okay, I got the answer.
I've got the memo, yeah.
I got the memo.
Oh, yeah, and these synchronicities start to abound, don't they? When we're in touch with our dreams, our lucid dreams, and we're open to experiences, these kinds of communications or synchronicities just pop up more and more, and life gets into a real flow, a lucid flow. Yeah.
I just gave a talk again at Hayden on the science behind the spirituality and lucid dreaming. And when you get into things like the quantum physics, you find out that, even the best scientists, the brightest quantum physicists really have found that we are all nothing but energy, at the very core, but not just energy, but conscious, entangled energy.
Yeah.
That simply, all of this makes a lot of sense. And there really is no barriers between, this particular, physical life and, what continues, how our consciousness continues on and entangles with the universe. And the neat thing about lucid dreaming is, or even regular dreams, is they tear down that barrier. And all of a sudden, you're in connection with the reality that is the reality. We're sort of trapped in this ego mind in this particular material reality. But if you get down to the basic core of what is the fundamentally us, what is fundamentally reality, even from a scientific quantum standpoint, you realize that we are all one. We are all connected, and we're just trapped in this little, focused point of ego in this particular lifetime. So, and as I put this together, it took me about 9 months or so to put the talk together. It was was called When We Dream, the Cosmos Dreams, uh, or When Souls Dream, the Cosmos Dreams. And after putting it together, I said, oh my gosh, this is real. Because I was using this information and quotes from various scientists and things like that, and the evidence from near-death experiences and all.
Oh,
And I said,
fascinating. Yeah.
wow, this is real.
So exciting. That sounds absolutely amazing. I'll have to have a read of that.
Yeah,
Love
well,
to.
I hope to give it at our next conference, which is in Ashland.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Let's just quickly, before continuing, mention the next conference for the International Association for the Study of Dreams, which they're always absolutely fascinating, amazing. You meet so many other like-minded people, and the next one is in Ashland, Oregon, from the 13th to the 17th of June.
Right.
Is that right, Bob? Yeah.
That's right. Yes,
Great.
it's going to be fun. It's more than
Join
just
us.
a conference.
Join us
It's
for
a party.
It really is a party.
But the nice thing is multidisciplinary. There is not only a whole track on research, but tracks on all the spiritual aspect of dreaming and the psychic aspect of dreaming and artists. The huge track on the arts and things like that, and then psychology. So it's a little something for everybody.
There's something for everyone, and it's a really great crowd of people. You'll feel at home there. If you love dreams, if you're interested in expanding your consciousness and having your own tribe of dreamers to hang out with, then come along. Yeah. Yeah. So, but back to what you were just saying, about discovering kind of the nature of consciousness and who we really are. What has that taught you then about the meaning of life? I always like to finish with a question like this, like, what is the meaning of life, Bob Hoss?
I think I did ask by Lucid.
Yeah.
No, what it taught me is, holy cow, and I mean, it surprised me as much as anything else because I was just researching the research. But it has taught me that we are one with the universe. We're entangled. We're one with the other side. And it basically said, this life and what I do now is not all there is. That I'm just living a little piece in time of a much longer, greater, immense, almost infinite lifestyle. Or like my wife said in the dream, I'll be talking to you in the next million years.
Yeah. Oh.
And so the people I know now and her, and for the instance, the caregiver that comes through that does such great things for us. Other members of my family and friends that we've known each other for eons,
Yeah.
and will probably go on that way as some sort of spiritual family. So this is the kind of thing that I get a sense for. It's like, I got to watch what I'm doing because this isn't just this moment in time that's going to be forgiven. I'm going to continue on now forever.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I had a very recent lucid dream where I was very aware of my lucid dream body, and I became conscious of the fact that every atom of my lucid dream body was cosmic. And I felt that cosmic energy rushing through everything and all the interconnections, but only in the most peaceful possible way, nothing stressful or hectic, but just this kind of perfection of being so connected to the cosmos on every level. It's just, these are the kind of dreams that they buoy us up in life. They remind us of who we are at our essence, and it's just magical. Help us through life in so many
Kind of
ways.
in answer to your question about the meaning of life, um, the most fascinating part of quantum physics is entanglement. Because as particles explode as the stars explode and the particles end up floating through the universe, they're entangled.
Yeah.
As one rotates, the other one rotates in the opposite direction. What you do to one by observing it happens to the other. So we're entangled with the whole universe.
Yeah.
And after my talk, there's about about a dozen people came up and said, "Oh, Bob, okay, if we're all entangled, what do we do about this horrible situation we are in now? In the world today, if we're entangled, we should be able to do something like that." with it, and realizing that what we do with our own minds affects the others around us and the universe around us. And I certainly didn't have a good answer for all that, but what do we do now?
I think the thing is, we can change things.
But if that was the awareness that these people suddenly became aware that we really are part of this whole thing. And as bad as things are today, we're part of that. But we also have the power to make a difference and change that. So
exactly. So it's about raising our awareness, becoming more lucid in our lives, and understanding our cosmic connection. I mean,
that's the other answer to your question: is becoming more lucid in our lives. Because if we realize that we are part of everything, all of a sudden, and we can see through that veil. All of a sudden, we realize we're not alone. You know, we're, and it's not a big old God up there, vengeful God, and we're down here praying. So we are part of that. We are one with that entire, like I was with the heart, and we are one with that overall cosmic energy, that consciousness that you can call God. And once you realize that, all of a sudden you're not lonely. You know you're not alone.
Yeah, and there's so much more to us than this lifetime that we're currently living, and our body, or our ego selves. It's beautiful to experience that bigger connection with the rest of humanity and beyond. Oh, thank you so much, Bob, for sharing these amazing experiences of yours. And it's always such a delight to talk to you, because you're very deep and you care so much. And I just love talking to you about your experiences. So thank you for sharing that with everybody.
Thank you too, because a lot of your experiences have stimulated my interests in lucid dreaming and the whole spiritual aspect of the lucid dreaming and lucid living.
And that's why these conferences are wonderful, the IASD conferences, because you get to interact with other dreamers and get inspired and go deep with them. Yeah, and so how can people contact you, Bob, or where would you like to direct them to? A website, something like that?
Okay, yeah, my website's called DreamScience.org. Pretty simply, remember, www.dreamscience.org, though. And on that way, it's we're not selling anything. It's just all pure information. And also, the DreamScience Foundation offers grants to researchers, so that we don't have a huge amount of money because it's been on donations, but we're usually able to give about 4 or 5 grants out each year to help researching these sorts of things. And one of them last year was about lucid dreaming. So
perfect, wonderful, great stuff. So thank you very much, Bob Hoss. And thanks for coming on the show. It's been amazing talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. It's been a delight.
You've been listening to Sleep and Deep Lucid Dreaming, the podcast that explores the mystery of your inner universe and invites you to fall in love with sleep. Please subscribe and leave a review, then come on over to deepluciddreaming.com.